Adam told God, the wife you gave me gave me the fruit to eat. So irresponsible. So irresponsible of Adam to make that statement. That Adam puts the blame on God does not mean God did not give him the wife. God gave him the wife. God made the marriage. Yes, God gave him the wife. However you want to think about it, God gave him Eve. God gave Eve to Adam. God gave Adam to Eve. Yes. It does not invalidate that God was involved in the process, that God validated the process. It does not invalidate the fact that the validation of God is needed in choosing a spouse. Welcome to another episode of Modus Operandi. Before anything, first of all, let me say a happy new year to you. It's going to be a glamorous and a beautiful, purpose-fulfilling 2026 for you, your friends, and your family. I'm happy to be here, and you're happy to be here. We're all happy to be here. My prayer is that just like the path of the righteous, it gets better and better until the perfect day, right? So, you're starting this year with a banger. Although every episode has been a banger, but we're starting this year, this whole month of January, talking about something very important, about finding the one. Finding the one. You don't want to miss this. Please subscribe and share the link to this episode or this podcast to as many people as you can. It is going to be life transforming. You came here to learn about finding the one, spouse, love, marriage, and all that. You are going to be better. You will be good. You will be good. You will be great. You will be transformed, revived, orientations aligned to proper biblical ideology, proper divine perception. This is very, very serious. You came here to look for donkey, right? You will find your donkey, but you'll become a king. You become a queen. Yes, that is what the wisdom of God does. This episode promises to be life transforming, life changing. Whether you're married, whether you're single, whether you're not even in any relationship yet, it's for everybody. Yeah. So, when I was doing the video, like a short clip in preparation for this episode, I was talking about Peter Backus's equation. That is Drake's equation for love. It was quite an amazing equation when I first came in contact with that mathematical equation about finding love. But it is true, right? It makes you see that your options are not as much as you think you do have. Anyways, that's just by the side. The first time it came to my mind to write about finding the one, getting a marital spouse, was in 2015, 10 years ago. In 2018, I did a series on Facebook on the same topic. So I wanted to even release a book that same year in 2018 on this topic, but I wasn't married. So why talk about finding the one when you not found the one? I decided to relax. However, we are here. Thank God. Thankfully, we are married. Yeah, and I am so excited to talk about this, not just for the sake of finding the one. You will not miss it. No, you will not miss it. But for the many things it's going to do for you in other areas of your life. Yes. According to statistics done by an automation company called Siemens, this was in 2013, they found out that 73% of couples feel that their current partner isn't the love of their life. Within that 73% of couples, 17% of them feels that they met the love of their life right after they got married. Very interesting, right? So this makes you wonder, how do I find the love of my life then? If I'm currently married, have I missed it? And if I'm not married, what measures do I take in order not to miss it? In fact, is there anything called the love of your life? Soulmate? Does God speak? And if he does, how does he lead? Then why should God be interested in this process of finding the one? There's a caveat here. It will be the most narcissistic mind state to talk about finding the one when you have not become the one. So first of all, I am addressing people who are continuously working on themselves, continuously being transformed, being intentional about their growth. Those are the people this podcast is for, this episode especially. You cannot be talking about finding the one when you are not the one. It is very narcissistic to think that you are the one already. So where's the one? How do I find the one? Are you the one? Are you the one? So I'm talking to those who are the one, those who are on the journey of growth, deliberate journey, who are deliberate about their development. So that is a caveat. So let's dive right into this. The first question is, why should God be involved in finding the one? Why should God be involved in finding my spouse? This is very, very, very essential. The number one reason is because God made the institution of marriage. You have a car, let's say a Toyota car, for instance. You should involve the manufacturer of the car. It's just basic knowledge. God instituted the institution of marriage. He made it in Genesis 1, Genesis 2. He made marriage. He made marriage. Marriage is God's idea, so it should be involved in marriage. Jesus was saying that without me, you can do nothing. Do nothing is not about lack of action. Of course, I can do something outside Jesus Christ, but it will not count in relevance to eternity and his purpose and plans for me. So nothing is not about the presence or absence of actions. It's about if the action has eternal relevance in tandem to God's purposes. So without him, we can truly do nothing. Who is it that declares a thing when the Lord has not established? When the Lord has not made established? Jeremiah 10:23. He said, Lord, I know people's lives are not their own. It is not for them to direct their steps. It is not for them to direct their lives. That is the conclusion of the matter. Our lives is not ours. It is not for us to determine our steps. It is God's property. So he can do with it in whatever he wants to do. He has the creator's rights. So if he says, go to this church, it is more than a suggestion. If he says, don't go, it is more than a suggestion. It is a command. Because at a point, I was almost politically correct about it by saying God does not give, he only suggests, stuff like that. Well, we'll come into all that. God made marriage, so it should be involved in the process of choosing our spouse. Point number 2. Contrary to popular opinion, the reason why some people want God to be involved in their spousal selection process is not because so that they can be lazy when God validates the marriage and say, well, God has chosen my spouse. Automatically, it means it's going to be a successful marriage. That is not why. The reason why people want God to be involved in their spousal selection, it is because it is one of the epitome of responsibility. It is one of the epitome of being responsible. If I have a healthy relationship with my parents, if I should tell them that, Daddy, Mommy, I'm getting married next week, they had no idea of who the person was. They were not aware when I was dating the person. When I was choosing, I just come and tell them I'm getting married. Some families, they'll be like, okay, it's fine. Let's get it started. When is the marriage? When is the wedding? That is not healthy. What shows that I have a healthy relationship with my parents is even before I go into a relationship, I said, Daddy, how far now? There's someone I'm liking. You. What do you think? Not because I'm being irresponsible, but because I trust the wisdom of my dad. And if my dad is comfortable, my dad also trusts my wisdom. He trusts my development. Okay, this person is okay. And I trust you too. I mean, I've raised you well. So you can go ahead. You can choose her. Or you can choose him. You can choose him. I've raised you well, my daughter. You can choose him. Your mom says, yeah, you can go ahead. That is a healthy relationship. So wanting my father to be involved, my heavenly father to be involved in my spousal selection process, either as a man or a woman, is a sign of responsibility. Yes, I understand that people have abused it. Some people can be very irresponsible. They think spirituality means waking up in the morning and asking, Daddy, should I brush my teeth? Daddy, should I go to work? Mommy, should I have my bath? I mean, a sign of spiritual maturity is that you know the scriptures. You already understand on a fundamental level the mind of God as regards many things. You don't have to bother him in quote on things he has already talked about. It has to be the non-givings. Sir, I have these opportunities before me. What should I do? This is not one that is revealed per se in scriptures. You want his specific leading and direction in that regard. That is responsibility. Not when you just wake up, Daddy, should I do this one? You've not even developed yourself. You're asking God whether you're ready for marriage. You're not ready for marriage. It is clear. Love your neighbor as you love yourself. What love will you give when you have not reflected it in your life? That is scriptural. That is in the revealed will. Let me not go into that. That is, we'll be covering a lot of things. Talk about that subsequently. So involving God in a marital process is a sign of wisdom. It's a sign of spiritual maturity. Then you will ask, why has marriages failed? Let's say you've seen some marriages failed. You see a man of God, like is powerful. And he seems loving, truly. But a woman of God, powerful. Or a sister, brother, amazing person. And yet their marriage failed. You are wondering why. Was God actually involved? And in some cases, God was involved. In fact, I'm referring to the ones whose marriage had God in it. God approved it. And before talking about that, let's talk about Barnabas and Paul. Paul and Barnabas. God called them. God approved the ministerial relationship. But it failed. So the error sometimes we make is that we use that as a means to invalidate the place of God in choosing our spouse or being in the process of choosing our spouse. It is wrong. It is a flawed mode of analysis. Adam told God, the wife you gave me gave me the fruit to eat. So irresponsible. So irresponsible of Adam to make that statement. That Adam puts the blame on God does not mean God did not give him the wife. God gave him the wife. God made the marriage. Yes, God gave him the wife. However you want to think about it, God gave him Eve. God gave Eve to Adam. God gave Adam to Eve. Yes. It does not invalidate that God was involved in the process. that God validated the process. It does not invalidate the fact that the validation of God is needed in choosing a spouse. So coming back to Barnabas and Paul, or Paul and Barnabas. Why am I saying Barnabas and Paul? Is it because my name is Barnabas? What went wrong? Paul and Barnabas' ministerial relationship failed because they were irresponsible. Let God be true and every man a liar. It failed because they did not understand conflict resolution. Lack of conflict resolution skill. That was why that ministerial relationship, divinely approved, failed. So when you see that person, powerful brother, amazing guy, loving person, and the marriage failed, divinely approved marriage, it failed because they were irresponsible. Full stop. Have you ever counseled someone? The person is crying. I don't know what's happening. I don't know why my marriage crashed. Blah, blah. The tears will move you to the point you will begin to think God is unfair. But it is not true. Do your diagnosis. Check in clearly. You get a perfect diagnosis, and it's always the same diagnosis. They were irresponsible. At the end of the day. Do you know why it is important for God to be involved in my spousal selection process? In the process of finding the one, it is because the validation of God guarantees the fruition of my efforts. It guarantees the success of my efforts. If I dig the first well and they seize it, I will dig the second, dig the third, dig the fourth, dig the fifth, because God guaranteed, God approved my going to that land. It will always be successful as long as I partner with God who is at work in me. I walk out my salvation with fear and trembling because it is God who works in me both to will and to do. I am walking from a place of victory. That is marriage. That is the importance of God's validation. It's not so I can be irresponsible. It's not so I can fold my arms and say the wife that God gave me, the husband that God gave. No. It is not because of paranoia. Even though that's why some people do that. It's counterproductive. I need to be sure. David involved God. He said, should I pursue? It is not being irresponsible, both in big decisions and supposedly small decisions. God needs to approve one way or the other. That is, he has to choose. He has to choose. That is why we involve God. So people's marriages fail because they are irresponsible, not because God was not involved in the first place. Have you met people? If I fail in the days of adversity, it is my strength that is weak, not God. It is a reflection of the weakness of my strength, of my ability, not the faithfulness of God. It will not give you more than what you can bear. James 1, all the answers are there. It says, rejoice when you go through adversities, when you go through trials. At the end of the day, the essence is for you not to lack anything. In that same chapter, God is light. In him, there is no shadow of turning. He is constant. Something has to be inconsistent. He must be consistent. He must be true. And all men a liar. Even if they don't think they are lying, crying, they are the one, they are this one. They messed up. Barnabas and Paul and Barnabas messed up. They were irresponsible. Our fathers of faith, of course, thankfully, they reconciled. Not back into that relationship, but being colleagues and all that from Paul's letters. But we could see our fathers of faith. I love the vulnerability of scriptures. I love the vulnerability of scriptures. Have you met people? There's always an area of their life that they've not addressed. For God to be just, when scripture says that God is a just judge, it is so powerful. A lot to unpack in that statement. For God to be a just judge, it means he will always do everything within his capacity and sovereignty to warn you as regards something or point out something you need to change. On a microscopic level and on a macroscopic level, it will always tell you, change this. That's why you have people who are powerful, loving, this one, their marriage fails. Not because that marriage was not divinely approved, because there's always that point of disobedience. There's that room they've not allowed the Holy Spirit entered. It could be unforgiveness. Some people can kill a lion, but they cannot say, I am sorry. Some people can raise the dead, but they cannot forgive easily. Some people can actually love God, but they've not dealt with lust. Let God be true and every man a liar. That is why marriages fail. So God has to be involved in this process because his validation guarantees the success of my effort in partnership with him. So when I am going through trials in my marriage, I know that the way out of this trial is not to quit the marriage, not to quit on the marriage, but to hold on to God, to work in me so that I lack nothing. Because trials are not a reflection of God not approving. No. So this is important. I have to be serious because it's very serious. It's very, very serious. It's very serious. After God's validation, the contriteness of a man's heart guarantees a successful marriage. That's basically it. So if Paul and Barnabas understood conflict resolution, that ministerial relationship would have existed. Yes, Paul later aligned with Silas, Barnabas later with Mark, his cousin. And let's even come into that situation. Oh, this is another podcast topic. I'm talking about conflict resolution now. But let me just talk about it too. Paul was right. How far? Why should we relate with Mark? Who left us while we were on a journey, on a missionary journey? And Barnabas was correct. How far? Now the guy don't apologize. He has apologized. And mind you, Mark was Barnabas' cousin. So you expect him to be more empathetic about the situation, which is true. And Paul, more truthful about the situation, which is true. We're both correct. One of the principles of conflict resolution is that nobody is entirely correct. At best, one person will be more correct, 99%. But the other person you think is wrong will still have at least 1% rightness. They did not understand conflict resolution. They did not have the conflict resolution skill. They allowed ego take over. That's why that relationship ended. That all things work together for good. Paul later went to meet with Silas. Does not mean you will not give account for the things that could have been better. Let's not go into that deeply. So the next point number 3. It is not because of charismatic excessiveness that we would want God to be involved in choosing a spouse. Yes, I understand people have abused it. The Lord said, you are my wife. Even to the point of manipulation. Again, like we have established, the abuse of a phenomenon does not invalidate the validity of the phenomenon. Does not invalidate the essence of the phenomenon. God still says, God still chooses, God still directs, God has to be involved. God has to be involved. Acknowledge God in all your ways, and He will direct your path. All. I would have loved to talk about the relationship between our psychology and theology. You know, if I've experienced abuse in a particular let's say in a particular doctrine, I subconsciously will tend to be on the other extreme. Let's say I saw people abuse the Lord said, "You're my wife, you're my husband." To the point of chaos, I would subconsciously find myself saying, "It does not matter. In fact, God does not say it. God does not lead that way." I'll start looking for supposed examples to validate my theory, but I'm having a bias. Now, this happens to the best of us. I'm not coming here to sound like a judge over people, but this particular statement is to teachers. If you are smart, you already get what I'm trying to say. Watch out. Else you start finding yourself saying, "There's nowhere in scriptures that God chose a spouse for someone." I've quoted how many verses now? It's clear. Every area, all your ways, all your ways. Without Him, we can do nothing. For people do not own their life. It is not in themselves to direct their path. Genesis 1 and 2, He instituted marriage. There are many verses. But we will come into, how does God choose? What is the will of God? How does He lead? How do I find? I'm going to make a statement that is going to be helpful. Whatever is salvific is specific. And one of our founding scriptures will be, "Work out your salvation with fear and trembling, for it is God who works in me both to will and to do." The problem of theological arguments, doctrinal argument, has been a poor understanding of this verse in Philippians 2. Of these verses, so to say. In Philippians 2. So we've come to the end of this first episode. I hope it was a beautiful ride for you. I hope certain understanding have been established. So we'll be going into the next episode. So see you next week. We're talking about soulmates. Is there anything called soulmates? Is there anything called soulmate? What is God's will? How do I know God's will? How do I find the one? Subsequent episodes will address these questions, but I believe that some foundations have been laid already as we continue on this journey. Do have an amazing celebration. Happy New Year once again. Until we see next time. Peace out.